Welcome! It's a great day to be a miner. Before me I have three IceRiver Ks0 Pro Special Edition, Kaspa Edition miners. We're going to get these things heat treated, we're going to get them tested, and then we're going to get them set up. But first, let's go ahead and spin that intro. Alright, first and foremost, these are the Ks0 Pro Special Edition direct from IceRiver, and we just recently made a video on should you buy these, the ROI, how much they make. Make sure to check that video out above. But we're going to go ahead and get these things heat treated and we're going to get them set up. But the very first thing we need to do before we open these things up is we better test them out. We're going to hook them up to some power supplies. We've got three of these 180 watt power supplies. They each run about $18 to $20. Again, check out my Amazon store or check out the links down in the description for any of the parts that we're using today. Yeah, so we're going to test each one of these out. Just make sure that they hash stock without anything done to them. And then as long as they're good, then we're going to open up both side panels. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in some Mosfet heat sinks. We're going to take the side casing open. We're going to put new thermal pads in and new thermal paste. We're going to use Arctic MX4. Use your best favorite. MX5, MX6, those are all quality paste. You can use Kingpin, you can use Cryonaut if you want to go even more expensive. But I've found that the MX4 is one of my favorites of all time. It's just really a solid through and through paste, and it's not super pricey. So yeah, that's what I personally use. So before we do anything, we're just going to plug one of these in one at a time. We're going to make sure that they start hashing, make sure that they show up on the dashboard, that we can log into them successfully. We're going to let them run for just a little while, make sure there's no issues, and then we'll get them. The next step is we'll go ahead and open them up and of course then heat treat them. We'll put our fans, we'll put our RGB fans on there because we all know RGB adds hash rate. So we'll add the RGB fans at the end. We've got our screws here, our fancy screws specifically that'll go down through the fans and thread into these side casings. And then we're going to use our brand new handy dandy power screwdriver. This thing is fancy, let me tell you. I'll make sure to link this guy down in the description too. But it pops out, it plugs in, it's chargeable, and it's just really a nifty little device, and it's actually pretty powerful. So we're going to try it out. I've never used it on a real electronics project yet, so we're going to try it out, see if we recommend it, and if it's any good, then of course I'll make sure to link it down in the description too, because this thing is just super neat. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and plug them in, we're going to test them, and we're going to leave you out of that because I'm sure you don't want to see us and wait for it just to fire up and show in the dashboard. So let's go test them out. Go. Okay, so here we are. We've went ahead and we've tested all three of these. We've ran them for at least an hour or so just to let them really get heated up, let them hash away. And being direct plugged in, they were hardly having any rejected shares, running 99.9%. All of them 206 to 208 gigahash through that hour period. And yeah, they all tested out really well. So now it's time that we can go ahead and open them up and get the heat treatment done on them. And by the way, here is the power supply. These are those cheapo power supplies that I've been using, and they've been running quite well. This is 180 watt. It runs on 100 to 240 volt, and it is a 19.5 volt, 9.23 amp. And yeah, it does get quite warm, but most of them do whenever you're running overclocked. So, you know, when I'm running them, I have them just sitting like this and make sure that they're cooled and yada, yada, yada. I'll make, again, links down in the description. So yeah, there's the power supply that we used. And now the next part is we've got to open these things up. And initially I thought these warranty stickers were going to be kind of an easy thing to take care of, to get off without leaving residue. But these are really, really good warranty stickers. Once they are stuck, even using a razor blade, it's going to leave behind the traces. And I don't think there's any way that you can actually get these off and not leave evidence that it's been removed. So more than likely, if you take these plates off, you are going to void the warranty. So if something goes wrong in the next year, you're probably not going to be able to get them repaired free from IceRiver. I'm sure that they would still deal with them and repair them at a large cost. But yeah, there's that. So I'm gonna ignore that, and we're gonna open them up anyway. And like I said, we're gonna try a razor, but I have a feeling there's not gonna be any way to get these off and not leave behind. This one, the sticker's not actually wrapped like it should be, and that's how it came. It just wasn't stuck on both screws. So there's a screw on the faceplate right here, underneath of here, and then there's a screw on the top. So the one on the top would be really hard to scrape with a razor, but it's not stuck on this one. But yet, you could probably try to peel back just far enough to get to the screw. But even then, it's definitely leaving the residue behind. So yeah, this is kind of impossible to get this thing off without it actually leaving the void marks on the hardware. Let's see if we can get a real good close-up of this thing. Okay, so our next step, let's go ahead and take the face plates off of all three of these, and then we'll store them in the box with the right Macs and get them stored away. And then we will proceed to take the covers off, which is the side with the fans. There are 6 screws on each one. And then once we get the 6 screws off, then we can take the boards out. We can clean the thermal paste. We'll repaste the chips with our good thermal paste. We'll put the top back on, the board back in rather. Then we'll put new thermal pads, and then we'll close out by putting new heat sinks on all 3. And then once they're good and cured, we'll put the tops back on them, and then we'll install the 120mm fan, and they'll be ready to hook up and ready to overclock. So yeah, let's get going. All right, today we're gonna test out our brand new, it's a Strebito electric screwdriver. This thing's really nifty. It has all these little fancy attachments here. It's magnetic. You put it in here, and then you just plug in this whole thing to charge, this whole case. And where's my charging port on this thing? Right here. So this charging port's on the bottom, but it charges right up through the middle. And this thing's really handy. You got forward, reverse, you can change the torque on it. So yeah, really a nifty little screwdriver. But if it's good, I'll recommend it, and if it's not, then we'll see. I don't know how powerful this thing will be to actually get these screws out. Let's do just this one faceplate first and see. Oop, wrong way would help. So it took a little extra turn by my hand to get it going, but then it pulled right out. It comes with this nice little magnetic mat as well, which is kind of cool. I'll just stick my screws on here so I don't lose them. I'll do this one right there. And let's do our next one. Not too bad, not too bad. This is more made for like a precision than it is for tougher drilling. Let's break back out the Ryobi. Instead of making you watch this, let's just go ahead and get all these plates off. Ready, go. All right, so there we go. We got all 6 of the plates removed, and something that I always do is I start every one of the screws back in, and I just leave the screws started, all 4 on each side, just so that I don't lose them. And as for the plates, because they have the corresponding MAC address for each one, I put them in the box that they came in. There's going to be a serial number on each device on the side, so then your box that these come in have a matching serial number sticker on it, and then I make sure to put the plate that came off of this one into that corresponding box. And then later, if I ever need to you know, send them in for repair, or if I sell them somewhere down the line, at least I'll have the right face plate to go with the right address, or the right device that has the right MAC address on it. So yeah, got all 6 of the plates off, and I did use my handy dandy little screwdriver for all of them. For this, it doesn't have a ton of power, so when I go to start it, I just hold the button and give it a little twist to get it started, and then just let it do its thing and pull it out. It does have nice magnetic tips in these, and the nice little magnetic mat that came for free with it was pretty good. So far so good with this little guy, and if it does work out pretty well, and I'll check the price on this thing, and if the price isn't crazy, then I'll make sure to share the link. I got it on a good discount, on a good deal. I think I paid like 30 bucks for it. I'm pretty sure they list them for like 70. So if it's below 40 or 40 or below, I'm probably going to advise to buy it. If not, we'll pass. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Let's take the 6 screws out of each one. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll pop the fan sides off of these, and then that way, and then we'll unhook the fans themselves, and then that will give us access to remove the board. So let's go ahead and start that. We'll use our little handy screwdriver here, and I'll show you what I mean. And so that one actually, it broke loose on its own, and then it just holds nice little spin. The magnetic tip didn't pull it out of there. There it is. So not too bad, not too shabby. So I'm going to take all of these screws out, and then I'm going to use my magnetic mat to let me know which one was where in the position. That way I can actually just take this one and then put them in the same exact order that I took them out. And then when I go to put them back in, they'll all be laid out nice and handy, and I actually get the same screws in the same holes. So should be good. Let's go ahead and do it. Let's go. And bam, we're back. All right, so I've got them all unhooked. Now, a couple tips here is that to make sure that I put the right fan on the right pin header, I just put a black dot with a Sharpie, and I know that the black dot will be the first pin. And then that way I get each of the first one back where it belongs. And then I went ahead and unhooked. Now, to unhook these, they do have a little clip just like any normal 4-pin fan. So I would just took my flathead screwdriver, a real fine one, and just stuck between the clip just to pry the clip a little bit, and I made sure to grab the plastic header and not the actual wires, and then I pulled it straight up. If you grab the wires and you pull and you don't have that clip pulled out good enough, you could easily pull one of these wires out of your fan header, and then that's a pain in the butt. So yeah, there is all 3 of those off. Next, we need to take out the actual boards on each one of these. So to do that, we have 8 screws. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 outside exterior screws, and then 4 interior. 1, 2, 3, and 4 right there. And these are tensioner with the springs on them, just like a lot of your motherboards will do, just like a CPU socket would have, like for your cooler, we'll have like the spring-loaded screws so that they keep a certain amount of tension without letting you over crank them too bad. So we're going to go ahead and take those out. Now, for taking them out, I'm going to just kind of go in a star pattern. It's really important when we retighten that we tighten slowly, go a little bit, and go outside, go inside. Actually start inside when we retighten. I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then repeat on the inside, then the outside, then inside, then outside, and that should be good and tightened back in. And what that does is that gives you a nice even pressure on all of your chips. So that's what we're going to do. And we'll go ahead and just start with one of these outside ones. And we'll just put that guy, if I can get it in there. So these ones are actually a little more fine tip, so I'm going to have to switch bits for this one. Right here. This has a cool little spring load too, see? Boink. Okay, so I'm going to pick one of my fancy, smaller, more fine tipped bits out of this guy. That one should work. We'll try that. Pop that out. All right, let's see if that works. Oh yeah, see, that's good. And then when we pull it out, the spring kind of stays with it. And again, I'm going to play those on the table the same way they came out. These do have a little ring, like a plastic type washer between the spring and the board, and that gives it a good insulation. So make sure if any of these come off that you put them back on so that you have that extra insulation between your screw and the board. Okay, I'm sure you don't want to watch us pull all those out, so I've got 4 more in the middle, and then we'll get all those out, and then we'll pop the board out. But so let's go ahead and just make it happen. go. Bam, there we go. We got all of our screws out. We're only going to do one at a time just so that we don't get anything mixed up. But I've got the 8 screws out, and now we're just going to kind of pull gentle pressure on the board just to pop that thermal paste open. And there is our board. And if you look real close, you'll see there's like a pink bubblegum type thermal compound, and that's what we're going to clean off. And just as a tip, wipe them across the chips, not this way. If you're trying to wipe it this way, you'll kind of wipe that stuff in on those little circuit chips, and it's a pain to get all that out of there. And yeah, so we'll use our 99% rubbing alcohol. We'll use some Q-tips. And then we'll use just our rag, and then we'll wipe as much of that off as we can. Then we'll use some Q-tips and we'll clean up all those chips. We'll then clean this all off, same method, 99% alcohol, rag, wipe this nice and clean. And then we'll put our thermal compound on each chip. We'll put a dot of MX4 on each chip, and then we'll get these holes lined right nice, and we'll set the board back in there, and then we'll retighten it back down. And that'll be step 1 of our of the 3 items to replace. So yeah, let's go ahead, and I'm not gonna have you watch the whole process of cleaning these, but literally this stuff is nice and soft. You're gonna wipe right across each chip like so, and that'll take the bulk of it off. And then we're gonna use some good Q-tips and rubbing alcohol. So those top 3, I got the bulk of it. Really, you don't have to go crazy and get it super well. I probably do a little more than I should on those, but really you just want to get it cleaned off and then get it prepped for your next. And then I'll use a thermal compound remover and a thermal surface purifier, which is the same stuff that you use on a CPU. Lots of people use on a CPU. It is, and it comes in a 2-bottle kit like so. This is the thermal compound remover part with the blue cap, and then I have the thermal surface purifier. So this will clean the chip off really well. This will just kind of make it so that the thermal compound adheres nicely to it. And yeah, that'll be the final step after I clean them with the Q-tips and the 99% alcohol. So let's go ahead and get this board done like. All right, so there she is. We've got the chips all nice and cleaned up, and we didn't use too much time on this, but we cleaned them really well with the 99% alcohol. Then we used the thermal compound remover, and we used the thermal surface purifier, and the chips are all ready to repaste. And I just wanted to show you what that paste looks like. It really looks like really old bubble gum. It's like this crusty pink stuff that's probably like industrial in a tub kind of thing. So yeah, not the best thermal compound. What I'm going to use is this MX4, my tried and true favorite. The MX5 I've tried before is too runny. The MX6 I haven't tried, but I've heard really good things. So the MX6 would probably, when I run out of this, will be my next purchase, will be the MX6. But yeah, so we're just going to put a little dot on each one. And now when you put these on, it's kind of a, because it's such a small chip and it's such a small dot, you're just going to put a dot, and I kind of twist the tube as I pull it up and make sure that the paste doesn't just kind of fall over, because it'll be kind of stringy, and then that way it kind of keeps the paste all on the actual chip. And I'll just do 1 or 2 real quick and show you. Some people will use the spreader and actually spread the paste on nice and even. I just put a nice dot on the chip and then let it smash against the metal railing. And so there's kind of about like how I do, and that's way too much probably, and that'll squish out, but that's okay. At least we got a good full coverage, and it won't be like all over the board or all over the transistors, but it probably will squish out a bit. And then I'll put that on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 12 chips, 6 on each side, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then once that's on, I'll go ahead and stick that back on here. This surface has been cleaned, and we'll go ahead and flip it on. We'll set it down nice and even, and we'll kind of try to visually line up our holes before we set it down, since it's just kind of sitting on this metal rail. So let's go ahead and get the thermal compound on all these chips, and let's get it on. Ready, go. All right, we've got our thermal compound on all of those, our MX4, and we want to make sure that your board is the right way, and this is the same as it was pulled out. So we want to get a good, let's turn the whole thing sideways so I can get a better grip on it from the ends. Just like that. And I want to line up my holes as I set it down so that the paste is in the right place. Now just like that. So now I can see all my holes are already lined up. So I'm just going to start lightly tightening these down into the holes. Just so that it stays in place, and then we'll start our star pattern, tightening this thing down. I really should tighten the inside first. I'm just gonna stick this one just to get it in the hole. Let's do our 4 inside, and then we'll do our outside. And just getting a couple threads in, and then we'll star tighten them. Okay, so just like that, we've started tightening them. Now let's start our star pattern. So we're gonna kind of go, I'm gonna start this one, give it a couple of spins, this one a couple of spins, this one a couple, this one a couple. Then we're gonna bounce back to the outside, 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 outside. Then we're gonna repeat on the inside and snug them down. So let's do that. Let's get a couple spins, a couple spins there, a couple right here. Go to the outside. Outside, outside, outside. Now back to the inside. We'll go keep our star going. So now we're getting tight. And you just want to do hand tighten. You don't want to crank these things down. You just want to get a firm, snug tight. So those are good. Now let's move to our outside. Snug all them down. And back to the outside here. And back to the outside. And just like that, bam, we're repasted. We've got some good quality thermal compound on there and instead of the garbage. Now our next step, let's go ahead and take these thermal pads off. Then we're gonna put the MOSFETs on the heat sinks. For this, I found the easiest way for me to get this stuff off nice and even is to just take, this is a spudger that's made to spread the thermal compound that comes with, actually this one came with the thermal paste that I'm gonna use for my heat sinks. And it's made to spread your paste on. But this works really good. This is actually thermal glue. But it works really good to just kind of get out under the edge and slowly scrape the whole thing out in one nice piece. And just like that, there is our old thermal pad, and we'll throw that promptly in the garbage. Then we'll do the same thing for the other one. We're not gonna put the next thermal one on yet, the thermal pad, because we're gonna do our heat sinks after that. And let's see, I should have some heat sinks here. These are just little copper heat sinks, 6x6x5. You could do 6x6x4. 6x6 is your square size. You could possibly do a 7. You wouldn't want to go bigger than a 7mm probably because it overlaps into some of the other circuitry. But a 6x6 is about what size that chip is. And then you can go clear up to as tall as 12mm. If you go higher than 12mm, you're gonna hit your top casing. I would not personally go that tall, and I'm only using a 6mm tall. But then again, I'm not going crazy on my overclocks. I won't be pushing these things above 300 gigahash. So that's me, that you do you. Let's go ahead and get this other one off there and then get ready for our heat sinks. Okay, so next, now that we've got these cleaned off, I even took them off of here. I'll wipe, before I put the fresh one on, again, I'll use the rubbing alcohol and clean both of these strips and up here real well. Just wipe them down before I put my new thermal strips on there, thermal pads rather. And then next, we're gonna go ahead and put our little heat sinks on our MOSFETs. So these little guys here, 6x6x6, I believe. These might be 6x6x5 actually. They're 5mm tall. Again, links for all this stuff will be down in the description and in my store. And we're gonna put them right here, not on these big tall chips here. The ones right below it, there are 4 small chips. Those are your MOSFETs. So we're gonna use thermal glue. These do come with thermal pads. Now, I don't know if the thermal pads really transfer the heat as well, but I'm using thermal glue and actually gluing them on there. And let's hope this thing isn't all solid. Last time it got, yeah, it did it again. It got, and it dries quick up in there. So I'm gonna have to get something to poke a nice hole in here and get back to the thermal glue. Okay, got a hole going, got some flow. I'm just gonna squeeze a small dab onto a square, and then I'll probably use this here spudger to get a nice coat. And I might not even need the spudger this time. And again, I'm just trying to get a coat in without getting it all over everything. There we go. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to coat it because I think when I squish this down nice and flat, that should get me the nice healthy coating that I need. So let's put our lid back on here. I'm sure that hole will close up again. But here is our heat sinks. And we're just gonna do one with the camera and then I'll do the rest off camera. So yeah, there's all there is to it. I put my glue on there, put a nice little dot, put it on there, and I don't want to hold it up too long because it'll start to slide. These take a little while to tack up. Before I actually do my thermal pads, I'll let these all solidify a good bit. Then I'll clean that and put my thermal pads on. We'll put our casing back on and bam, we'll be in for business. So let's go ahead and put the rest of these heat sinks on this one and then keep going. And now while these were drying, I went ahead and prepped my thermal pads. These are actually Arctic brand. It's 200 by 100 millimeter thick, 200 by 100 millimeter wide, rather 200 by 100 millimeter, and it's a 1 millimeter thickness. Again, you can use 1.5 millimeter, but I've been using this 1 millimeter and it has been doing a good job, so there's that. So then it is a 6.5 inch long by 1/2 inch wide. Now tips on how to do this is, since it's in a sheet, I took a Sharpie and a ruler and I just made my lines, my tick marks, used the Sharpie and a straight edge ruler and drew nice straight lines. And then I used scissors. Don't try to use a razor or a knife and cut these things. It's such a pain. But if you cut them with scissors, you get nice even strips like so. And I've cut 6 strips out for my 3 different Asics here. So there's 2 of them right there. They have a front and a back piece of clear plastic. The back plastic's actually like a blue, and then the top plastic's like a clear plastic. So you'll pull off your blue plastic, you'll lay them on there nice and straight, and then you'll pull the top plastic off and you'll set your case back on there. Again, I cleaned my railings real good with rubbing alcohol, and I cleaned my gold strips with good rubbing alcohol as well. So now it's ready for our pads. I'll put one of these on, even though these are still wet and I don't want to actually bump them or move them. I'm just gonna put one of these strips on to show you real quick. See, now I pulled the blue stripping off the back. And then I'm just going to try to lay it nice and even. It's a lot easier if you stand right over top and do it. But of course that doesn't work on a camera. So yeah, that worked out pretty good. And then now I need to pull the corner off so I can get the clear plastic off so that it'll be tacky on that side to touch to the rail. I'm just using a straight stick pin with this. Usually I use a razor blade, but there you go. And there you go. There is our strip, nice and installed. And then I'll do the same thing for the other side. And then really I could go ahead and hook my fans on and hook this casing back together. So let's go ahead and do it. Okay, now I've got both of my thermal pads back in there, and now we're gonna hook our fans back up. And then I had already marked my Sharpie black one for the one that's closest to me. So we're gonna do the farthest one, and these slot in just like a normal fan header on a motherboard, which it's harder to do when you can't see it as well. There's one, and then we've got our second one. And then how they had it was, it was like they went ahead and twisted this thing to take out some of the slack, I guess. So that's what we're gonna do too. And I think that's just, again, to take out the slack. Now, when you put this on, you wanna make sure that these fan wires are tucked around just like this. And that'll make it so that your pad is touching your railing cleanly and not touching, smashing the wire down in. And just like that. And then you want to kind of visually line up your holes like so. And then I want to make sure that those wires are not in the way. And there, that wire was on my rail, on this left rail. So I got my finger in there, and now, perfect. So that's what I was talking about, the wires. It wasn't actually under the thermal pad, but it was right up here on this rail, this part of the rail, and wouldn't actually let it lay flat. So I had to pull the wire back just slightly. And then again, it is kind of wrapped around so it's not in between the casing and the thermal pad. And then once I tighten this thing down, it will smash against that thermal pad real nice. And there you go. Now let's go ahead and put our 6 screws back in. I don't want to move this thing too much because I still have those heat sinks setting in there drying because I didn't actually give them ample time to dry real well. So now let's put our 6 screws back in the casing, and then this one will be ready, and we'll go ahead and knock out the other 2, and we're going to let this one just set up and dry real well for, I don't know, at least 4 hours before we actually hook it up and heat it up. So let's put the screws back in this one and then keep going. Well, there you have it. We've got one of these already done. It's just drying now. We've got the heat sinks done. We've got the thermal pads. We've got the thermal paste replaced. We've got our nice end caps off. The only thing that's left to do to this thing is to flip it over, and then we're gonna put an RGB fan on there. Let me show you that fan real quick. All right, so here is our fan of choice. This is the UpHere RGB. It's USB powered. It has 3 different settings, high, medium, low, and off. So technically 4 settings because you got an off. Which you're just going to be running this on high anyway all the time, but it is still pretty nifty that it has that. It is a USB, so it's not going to have nearly as much CFM as, say, one that you plug directly into an outlet. But for our purposes and for the amount of overclocking we're doing, if you're just doing normal overclocking, if you're opening up the sides and you're replacing the thermal pads, the paste, and the MOSFETs, this is more than adequate for that type of setup. These come in a 2-pack like so, and they're only $20 for a 2-pack. They come with a nice grill cover, and they have nice rubber feet and screws as well. So really sweet deal. Again, we'll put these down in the description as well. You'll want these to blow inward into the device. You'll want them to blow air like this into the device. On the other side, we'll be blowing the 2 mini fans in, and then it'll create a sandwich action which will blow out the air on both ends to exhaust out all of that heat. So yeah, we've done lots of testing, and that is the optimal way to configure your fan. No ifs, ands, and buts. That's the way to do it, unless you're using some kind of a different shroud, a 3D printed shroud, a Fruition's design type enclosure. This is the premium solution without actually buying any additional add-ons, just using a single fan and blowing the air in, causing a sandwich out. So there you go. I think that should be able to wrap up our video today. Of course, I still got more work to do. I still got 2 more of these to do. Get them ready so we can get them up and hashing. A couple of quick last thoughts before we get up out of here. All 3 of these are now heat treated. I've got one actually up and hashing away. It has yet to be overclocked, but we'll get to that in a future video. We have now replaced the thermal pads, the thermal paste, and the MOSFET heat sinks on all 3. We added a nice RGB fan to blow in. We know RGB adds hash rate, of course, and we tested out our brand new tool, and it actually worked pretty well. This is not a sponsored video. This is the Strebito power screwdriver, electric screwdriver. It charges off of a USB-C, has a nice little convenient case with the click in, has a 70 magnetized accessories. I think it's a 70-piece kit, so I think there's 64 bits in in here, and there's a lot of different fine specialized screwdrivers, and this thing worked pretty well through the whole thing, and it's still showing that it's nearly a full charge up here on the gauge. The only thing I would say is that this retails for 70 bucks. No way I would ever advise anyone to pay 70 bucks, but it is currently selling for 40 bucks. 40 bucks is a solid deal. I got it for 30 just as a reference point. And yeah, I think I endorse this. I would not, again, pay over 40 bucks for this kit, but I'll make sure to link it down in the description and you can make your own decision on that. It did survive. It worked pretty good. One thing is that it does not have the torque of, say, a big guy like this. So if you're expecting to use a lot of torque, you may have to actually break free the screws with a standard manual screwdriver if it's a very hard torque. For this, I didn't have to use the standard screwdriver. I was able to actually break them free with this the entire way. So that's just another little add-on. And of course, I'll make sure to link all of the pieces and components that I used for these builds in the bottom. We used the different thermal paste, we used MX4 thermal paste. I advise MX6 if you're buying new. We had thermal glue, we had the copper heat sinks, the Arctic thermal pads. You could use the 1 millimeter or the 1.5 millimeter thickness. This is the sheet 200 by 100. We have the specialized screws for the fans, and of course the UpHere fans themselves. If you're new to mining or you need some help, make sure to join the Mosfet mining Discord. There's always plenty of seasoned vets in there willing to help you out. And if you like the video, you know what to do. Smash that like button and subscribe for future content. Thanks for coming along and enjoy the ride.